Hello, we have now already covered the different processes and transactions in accounts payable. We've seen how a vendor master looks like, and we've also seen the different kind of transactions on a day-to-day basis within the vendor accounts payable. We'll now look at the demo for the different transactions which we've already covered. This slide shows you how a vendor master looks like. We have already covered this in the previous videos. The next slide shows how does a park document look like. This is the stage of parking a document and a simulation screen. This is not the final park document, but it's more to show how a vendor down payment will look like. This slide shows you how a down payment clearing looks like, where we select the posting with clearing option on the top screenshot over here. And then we choose which vendor account do we want to make down payment for. And finally, on the right side, you see how a particular payment is selected. We can also park PO based invoices where you need to enter the purchase order number, which you see at the center of the screen over here. This is how you create a credit memo, which looks like a lot how you create a vendor invoice. You can also park non-PO based invoices, which means those invoices which are directly posted into accounting without any material information. This is the non-PO based invoice, which means no PO number will be assigned to this particular invoice. Automatic payment program. We will cover this in SAP in a while. And you can also display your document with transaction FB03. And once your invoices are posted as well as your payments are done, you can display these vendor line items in detail. Before we move on to the summary, let us look into these different transactions in SAP. So currently we are on the SAP main screen. We can drill down into accounting, financial accounting, accounts payable, document entry, document parking. So as you see, you can post an invoice directly in the system if you are a senior accountant who has the right to approve invoices. But if you are an analyst in a company who does not post invoices directly without approvals, then you will park an invoice. Let us see how parking an invoice looks like. It looks exactly the same as posting an invoice, but when you save it, it is saving as a park document and not as a post document. Let's enter the vendor number here. As you see, we've already got the company code default, but if you want to change the company code, you can click on this button over here and select a new company code. The invoice date will be today's date and the amount will be 300 euros. You can put here in the reference the invoice number from which is sent by the vendor. In our case, we'll just put it as ref1. You need to enter the GL account for which you're making an invoice. Let's say this was a vendor who has sold you paper, or this can be someone who has rented you a building. So you want to make a payment for such kind of things. We can select any GL account from the list of expense accounts that we have. We've already pre-selected a GL account in this case. As you see, there is a debit and a credit indicator, but you don't need to change this because by default, if it is an invoice, this will always be debit, which means your vendor will be credited by default. Whatever expense account you enter here will be debited automatically. Next comes the amount column. You can choose to enter the amount manually, which is given on the top, which means 300. But this is more useful when you enter multiple line items. When you have only a single item, you don't need to remember what was the amount you entered. You only need to put a star or an asterisk mark. This will automatically populate the amount which is there or at the top in the header level. Once this is done, we need to click on the Save button, and this will save the POC document. If there are any errors, then you need to check that accordingly. In this case, it says the line item has incorrect debit credit indicator. Let us restart this transaction because we manually must have changed this debit credit indicator. So, one step back, the transaction for this particular parking document scenario was FV60. See what happens when we change this invoice to a credit memo. Currently it says debit over here. If we change this to a credit memo and we press enter, you will see that after entering the main details like vendor, date, etc., this has automatically changed to credit. We have not done any other changes on the line item. This is just to show you how the debit credit indicator looks like. I will go a step back and restart this transaction for our example demo. So let's enter the vendor number, today's date, amount of 300 euros, GL account, and star, and click on save. If there is any warning, you can press enter and ignore the warning. We're taking an example which is not tax relevant. So as you see on the status bar at the bottom, it says that the document was parked. This means this document is still not posted in the system. How we can check that is, you can open a new session by clicking on this button, and we can check transaction FBL1N, which we have visited in the earlier videos. This transaction gives you a line item level detail of the vendor. As you see over here, along with normal items, we have also selected parked items. Click on the execute button, which looks like a clock, and you will see that there are many documents which are in red, which means these are all due for payment. But you will see the parked document, which we just parked recently, is in a different section over here. This was the document which we currently parked, and it's in yellow because it says it's parked. It is not yet posted, which means there is no accounting entry which has been made for this document. Let us go back to the screen where we parked the document, and let us go back to the main screen where we have the list of transactions. Over here we can choose an option under document called post or delete a parked document. Under parked documents, we have an option of either deleting, changing, posting, etc. Let's say you are now a senior accountant who wants to approve this parked document. You will click on the transaction FPV0. You will check the document number which needs to be parked, which needs to be posted. Press on enter, and you will see the document which has been parked by the junior analyst in the company. If you approve of everything, you can choose to just click on the post button directly, or you can choose to enter some comments over here. For example, you can say approved by XYZ. This will be like an indicator that you have approved this document. This is not mandatory at all. Once this is done, you can click on the post button, and this will post the invoice in the system. As you see over here, it says the same document number has been posted in company code 1000. Now if we go back to our vendor line item display screen, as you see, currently this was under park documents. And now we need to refresh the screen to see if it changes. After refreshing, you will notice it has gone out of that list of park documents, and it now shows up as a document which is already posted and due for payment. You will also see in the text the field that we had entered, the details have been captured in this column. If you want to view the document again, you can directly double click here, which will take you to the screen of the document. You need to click on this mountain button to see the document completely. And now you see over here, we have debited the expense and we have credited our vendor. You can also see the debit credit indicator in this column over here. S stands for debit and H for credit. If you go back, now we need to make a payment for this particular invoice. Since we know that it is already due, you can see the bell over here. We can make the payment already. For making the payment, the transaction which we saw in the presentation was F110. Once you enter this transaction, you need to choose a unique date and identification for your run. Let's say today is the 18th of December and you want to make a test 1. This should always be unique. If on the 18th of December you have already created test 1, then you need to create test 2 or test 3 and so on and so forth. So under test 1, as you see, we currently have no parameters entered, which means this is a completely new run which you can start using. The first thing we need to enter is the parameters. As you see, automatically the posting date and the documents entered up to date are populated already for you. We need to enter the company code, which is 1000. We need to enter the payment method. If you are not sure of the payment method for this vendor, you can always open a new session and you can go to the transaction to view the vendor master, which is FK03. Press enter. Insert our vendor number over here. Click on payment transactions because this is where our payment method is saved. And again, press enter. Over here, you will notice that there are two payment methods by which we are paying this vendor. One is C and the other one is R. Now, I want to make a payment using a SEPA transfer, which means a bank transfer to this vendor, which means R. So I will shut this window, and on this screen of automatic payments, I will enter R. If you do not remember, then you can always click on this drop down button and select the payment method from the list. The next thing you need to enter is the next payment date. Let's say you are in the accounting department and you make weekly payments, which means the next payment which you will make is on 26th of December 2015. The vendor number, of course, needs to be entered over here, which is this one, which we already posted the invoice for. And you can choose to either save right now, or you can go ahead and enter additional details. Free selection. This is optional. If you want to make a payment only for one vendor invoice, then you can select this part. For example, if we want to make a payment only for this particular invoice, which we just posted for 300 euros, then you need to copy it from this screen and paste it over here. And you need to select what are you exactly inputting, because the system may think you are inputting anything. So you need to be very specific that you are inputting the document number. Now you have instructed the system that you want to make a payment only for this document number, which means if there are any other documents which are due, will be ignored. You also need to enter in the additional log the vendor number again. And this completes entering parameters totally, and you can now click on the save button. Once you click on the save button, you can go back to the status screen, and you see earlier it said no parameters entered, and now it says parameters have been entered. Once this is done, you need to click on the proposal button. The proposal button will give you an option of delaying the proposal, which means you can set it up for, let's say, during lunchtime when you are not around, and the system will automatically run the proposal in the background. But in our case, we just want to make one payment, which means this will not take too much time. So you need to click on start immediately and click on the enter button. As you see, the proposal is ready to be started. This means the status is currently in yellow and there is a process happening in the background. You can click on the refresh button, which is called the status button over here. And you see it's now in green. It says the payment proposal has been created. Please bear in mind that this does not mean that the document is posted, but only the payment proposal has been currently created. You can view the proposal by clicking on the glasses button here, and it says that this vendor, this name, and this amount has been considered in the proposal, and it's in green, which means the payment will be made. There are no errors in this case. It could have been in red color if you had a payment block, but we did not have a payment block in our invoice. You can go one step back. You can also view the proposal log, where it shows exactly step by step what the system has done to get this finally the decision of payment. It tries to find the document which you had manually entered. Then it tries to see the terms of payments, whether we are within those terms or not. It checks if there's any grace period. It also checks if there's any cash discount. And it checks that when the payment should be actually made. Since the payment should be made before the 23rd of December, and our next payment run was on 26th of December, this document is now considered for payment. You can also see that there is an exchange rate provided over here, which means our 300 euros have now become 360 US dollars on the right side. You can also see on the left side our vendor number, and on the credit you can see the bank account number. So this is a log just to show you how exactly things are calculated. If there are any issues or errors, you will find that on this screen. If we go one step back, we have now created the proposal and we are ready for payment. So you need to click on the payment run button. Again, you have the same option of either delaying your payment. Let's say you want to do it tomorrow in the afternoon, then you can do that by selecting the time and the date over here. Or we can select on start immediately and click on enter. As you see, again, there is a process in the background, which is why it is in yellow. You need to click on the status button to see if it is now changed to green. As you see, it says one posting order is generated and one completed, which means our payment has now been made. You can check that in the payment log, where it tells you the payment document number which has been created for this payment. You can go back to the vendor line item display. As you see, earlier it said that this particular invoice was in red, which means it was overdue. You had to make a payment yet. But now if you click on the refresh screen, that document is gone. And that is because the payment has now been made. If you want to see the document, you need to click on the back button and you need to click on all items. Let's say we want to see all items from 1st of November till today, and press on the execute button. If you go further down, you will notice that this was the invoice which we posted for 300, and on the bottom is the payment document of 300, which means 300 negative and 300 positive. We have completed this transaction with the vendor and we do not owe the vendor any more money. So this gives you an idea of how an invoice is posted, how an amount is paid, and how finally you can check in the vendor line item display how it looks like. That's the end of accounts payable. Thank you very much for watching Edupedia World videos.